You know, in a world with constant digital threats, security really can't be left to chance. It takes a dedicated organization, one that acts as both the architect and the guardian of our networks. Today, we're going to explore how this central command builds our defenses, patrols those digital walls, and even performs what you could call digital autopsies after a breach. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off by understanding the role of this central organization. Then we'll see how they audit defenses and proactively hunt for weaknesses. After that, we'll see how it all works with a real-world scenario before we wrap up with the key takeaways and a final question for you to chew on. And this really is the core idea, isn't it? A proactive, organized approach isn't just a nice to have. In today's digital world, it's absolutely essential. So let's meet the organization at the very heart of this effort. All right, our first stop is the command center itself, the Cybersecurity Organization. This is the group responsible for creating the actual rules that protect our digital fortress. A really good way to think about this organization is to see it as part cyber police and part research center. So it enforces the rules, sure, but it also provides all that centralized knowledge and expertise. I mean, without a central body like this, every single unit would be left trying to defend itself alone, and that is just a recipe for disaster. The role of the cybersecurity organization is really threefold. First, it enforces continuous policing of the IT network. Second, it acts as that centralized knowledge hub. And third, it provides the resources needed to proactively stop threats before they even become a problem. So how do they actually put these ideas into practice? Well, the process is super clear and logical. It all starts with classifying all the hardware. Then they recommend architectures for intrusion detection systems, the digital tripwires of the network. They make sure policies are actually put into place, and they provide specialized guidance for complex stuff like disaster avoidance. And finally, they establish those crucial policies for things like key management, which controls all the cryptographic access. Okay, so the policies are in place, but how do we know they're actually working? Well, that brings us to our next section, auditing the defenses. This is all about patrolling the walls and, when necessary, investigating breaches. This is such a powerful analogy. Just like a post-mission debrief helps a team figure out what went right and what went wrong, a security audit does the exact same thing for our digital defenses. We have to know if they held up, and if they didn't, how the heck did the bad guy get in? Now, the crucial point here is that security audits are how we verify a system's integrity. But not all audits are created equal. They basically fall into two main camps. You've got your regular, routine checks, and then you have the highly specialized forensic investigations that happen after a breach has already occurred. And right here, you can see that timeline in action. It all starts with those routine internal security reviews. But when a security breach happens, the whole process shifts gears. A forensic audit kicks off to investigate what happened, while at the same time, a computer emergency response team, or CERT, begins the process of restoration and recovery. So far, we've talked about setting rules and investigating when things go wrong. But we all know the best defense is a proactive one. Our next section is all about finding weaknesses first, basically stress testing the fortress before an enemy even shows up at the gates. It's as simple and as critical as this. It doesn't matter if it's a new radio or a brand new computer system, we have to find the vulnerabilities, those little cracks in its armor, before an adversary gets the chance to exploit them. And this whole process has a name. It's called a vulnerability assessment. As the definition says right here, it is the proactive process of identifying those weaknesses. The key word, and I mean the key word, is before. This is all about prevention, not reaction. So how does it work? Well, there are two really crucial parts. First, the scope is huge. It covers all systems, whether they're already being used or are just being proposed. And second, it's actionable. Based on what they find, the organization issues specific directions on how and where these systems can be safely deployed. Okay, we've covered the policies, the audits, and the assessments. Now let's put it all together and see how these pieces actually work in a real-world scenario. So, just imagine the armed forces are getting ready to roll out a brand new database for handling sensitive personnel records. This is obviously a super high-value target, so security has to be top-notch. So before the system even goes live, the cybersecurity organization steps in. They run a deep dive vulnerability assessment, and they find potential software bugs. Based on what they find, they then create a specific policy for exactly how that database has to be configured for maximum security. All right, the system is now up and running. But the job is not done, not even close. It now becomes part of the regular security cycle, and it goes through routine internal security reviews to make sure its defenses are still solid and that everyone is following the policies. But let's say the worst happens. Despite all of those precautions, a skilled hacker finds a way through and gets into the system. This is the moment when all those reactive measures kick into high gear. Immediately, the response happens on two fronts. A CERT team is deployed to start disaster recovery, working to secure and restore the data. At the exact same time, a forensic audit is launched. Investigators dive deep into the system logs to piece together exactly what happened, how the hacker got in, and maybe even which terminal they used to do it. Okay, let's do a quick recap of the key takeaways. Number 1, the cybersecurity organization is the central command for IT policing. Number 2, audits include both routine reviews and post-breach forensics. Number 3, certs are your first responders for disaster recovery. And number 4, vulnerability assessments are the proactive shield securing systems before they're ever deployed. And that brings us to our final question. We've talked a lot about how this organization is focused on preventing threats, but a forensic audit only happens after a breach. So why is this reactive tool so vital for a proactive organization? Well, it's something to think about, right? The lessons you learn from one failure are the very foundation for preventing the next one.